Actually, I'll let them briefly introduce themselves and their connection to why they're here. So I'm going to start here at the sitting with Barbara here.
I introduced myself earlier, Barbara Salisbury, and specifically, I guess, to address the questions of accessibility regarding people with vision impairments, people who are blind. And I am associated with the American Council of the Blind, as I said earlier. So, familiar with the blindness community and what they like and what they don't, and what they'll forgive and what they won't. So, just kind of addressing that part, I think.
Okay. And Corey.
I'm Corey Mintle, and I'm a survivor from a brain injury back in '87 in Colorado. I moved here, and I'm kind of a member of the CCA, and I've gone to some conference thing that helps with disability, and I know a few of the friendly faces in here, and I'm just here to help do a little convincing and talking about how restaurants should be more accessible.
Great. Check.
Chuck Osborne, introduced myself, member of the CCA since about 2002 or something like that, or thereabouts, and so was very involved in setting up the accessibility program. Started the working with restaurants and other places of public accommodation to help them know what the ADA requirements are for them, so we could help them become accessible to increase our business. Make it accessible for one person. There's generally their family and their friends that go to eat with them and so on, so it does help increase your business.
Thanks. And Leslie.
Leslie Davis. I work at the IU Law School, though I am not a lawyer. I work with international students in international programs, so I travel internationally a lot, and I'm very glad for the Americans with Disabilities Act. I'm also a frequent restaurant goer, because I'm not much of a cook, but and the Uptown is a great example. My husband and I have known Michael for ever since we moved here in 1995, and my husband was responsible for the bar renovation and all the bathroom renovations, and he schooled me on something. I said, how come over there the old bathrooms that are now accessible, anybody remembers the women's bathroom, it did not used to be accessible. I said, how come the men's bathroom isn't? He said, there isn't quite a 5-foot turning radius, couldn't you tell? And so I was delighted that he could tell and I couldn't. That's why the men's bathroom over there doesn't have the wheelchair sign, but the women's does, and both of them on this side are accessible. So it can be done, and it's the right thing to do, and the bathrooms are really nice. So here to help in any way I can.
So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to ask them one question and ask each of our panelists to answer that question. And then after that, we're just going to open it up. They may have some other things they want to share with you. Some people in the audience may want to share certain things. And of course, questions are happily entertained. So I'll start down that end for Leslie and say, here's the question. What things make you want to come back to a restaurant regarding accessibility, disability sensitivity, and what's good customer service for you?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think the things that make me want to come back to a restaurant are the same things that would make anybody want to come back to a restaurant. If it's a place I go often, like the Uptown, people will hold heavy doors for me. There's a way to hold a heavy door where you're standing right in the way of the person with the wheelchair, and there's a way to hold it where you really are out of the way and you're being helpful. People who know when staff, the host or hostess and the wait staff thinks, okay, wheelchair, and they look ahead and they figure out where are you going to be able to fit and where aren't you, and I'm going to have you follow me in that direction where you are going to fit, and I'm going to ask your opinion on which seat you want, which chair you'd like me to take away. And often I'll say, hey, this wheelchair sticks out pretty far behind. So if I'm in a narrow area, your waitstaff is going to trip over this, and that's going to be a mess. So if they don't know that, which many people wouldn't, I'm always happy when they ask, where's the best place for you? I also really like it when I ask a question about accessibility and there is someone who can answer it. So it may not be the person I ask, but I really like it if somebody at the restaurant knows to say, you know what, I'm not sure, but I know that so-and-so, our manager, is sure. Or if I have a suggestion to make, like that 3-inch threshold is really hard to get over in a wheelchair. It's always great if somebody will come over and talk to me and say, what can I do about that? And then I'll tell them what they can do, and then they follow up. And finally, I love a restaurant that does not stack its extra chairs up outside of the restrooms. Because your restroom may be wonderfully accessible, but the space to get into it is this big when you stack up all the extra chairs.
Yeah.
What's the same question to you? So what makes you want to come back? Go ahead.
Well, besides the food, you know.
Where is that?
Well, number one, you've got to have a place to park close by. And it's got to be accessible. You got to be able to get in. When we moved here from Connecticut in 1988, I was in a wheelchair and all the time. And I found out about the ADA by attending what was a council for handicap concerns at the time. I think David was there, and where I met David and got involved. But coming to a restaurant, yes. When my wife and I like to go out to eat, and we like to be able to get into the place. We want to be able to have a menu that's, I'll let her talk about that, Barbara, about handicap menus. But many things, getting in, getting to a place where you can sit, and like I was in, like I say, in a wheelchair, there was a lot of places you couldn't sit. And and when we go back, we go out to eat, a lot of times we'll go out with friends, and we have to go to a place that is accessible. Of course, I don't need a wheelchair at this time, but I still like to know that it's accessible, and I will give them my business anyway. So.
Corey, how about you? What makes you want to come back to the restaurant?
Well, actually, the most important thing for me, because I have very limited walking ability, is, well, parking. I hate that when there aren't enough handicap parking spaces that are open in front. I could walk a little ways, but I'm not about to walk a big mile or whatever to get to the restaurant. And then I want to say one more really important thing. I love to be understood and listened to and have their attention geared toward me, look me in the eye when I order, and not ask my mother, what does she want? That drives me crazy. I wish, well, like waiters and waitresses should address the person, what would you like to order? And then I say as clearly as I can, and that makes it really good. And to sum it up, to get into the restaurant and get your order taken, make it really special. I love eating out.
Excellent. Thanks, Corey. And Barbara.
Okay, I join you. I love eating out too. And I will kind of springboard off of something that Corey said. And oftentimes you will find when taking an order and there's someone blind at the table, the waiter doesn't know how to get that person's attention. And obviously, perhaps with Corey, they can catch her eyes. And so that shouldn't be too difficult, okay? But if you're a waitress or waiter and you're wanting to get the attention of that person, and if you're close enough, you might just touch that person on the arm, or if they're not close enough, you might just say, and the woman in the blue shirt, or whatever it takes for you as the waitstaff to address that person directly. And so I will springboard off of that. Customer service and really treating people with the same respect that you would anyone else. And a lot of things will be forgiven. For example, it is very important to have accessible menus. A lot of times people do not. There are quite a few Braille readers still, and I happen to be a heavy Braille user, and so I always appreciate a Braille menu. Large print menu for those that have low vision is especially important, especially for the aging population that is getting minimal, the vision is decreasing. Those large print menus are very critical. A lot of older folks later in life, they may not read Braille, but they may still have enough vision to read that large print menu. And another very important way to make sure that you're communicating your services, your menus, is have an accessible website. Make sure your menus are accessible, that they can be read by people who are blind and using screen reader softwares. Also, a lot of blind people, and I don't want to say all of them because there's still a good bit of the aging population that don't use iPhones, but a lot of blind people do use their smartphones, and they will use them sitting in the restaurant. So they'll pull up your website and look at your menu that way. And so, we have iPhones that, talk and dance and everything else. So, and so they'll view the menus via the website. So critically important. And the other thing is coming into the restaurant, if, some group of blind people or just someone by themselves coming into the restaurant, it is so important about how you interact with that person to help them, assist them to get to the table. Because some people may be very comfortable navigating between tables and chairs, etc., with their guide cane or their guide dog. You will need to know how to interact with them. Okay, so training, sensitivity and disability awareness is critical. So giving directions as you're walking through the restaurant ahead of that person, you need to be giving them directions. We're turning right now, whatever. We're coming up to a tight spot here, etc. You may even want to offer your arms. Some people may not want to navigate that. And so you may want to offer your arm. Know how to do that. Don't want to take a hold of their arm and push them ahead of you. They're not guiding, okay? So you need to know how to do that. And when I came in today, the young lady that met me, very helpful. She offered her arm. She did not insist that I take her arm, okay? And that's important. Some people may not want to do that. And so I did take her arm. She told me when we were coming up to where it's going to be tight. And so she was very schooled, and she knew what she was doing. The other thing too is, and I was going to say, if you do all of that right in the beginning, how you seat people, how you give them directions and navigate, a lot will be forgiven from that point on. The other thing is, if you have a lot of people, if you do have a Braille menu, you probably only have one, and that's understandable. But often if we go out with a group of people and there are several people who are blind in the group, and we've done this before, because as I mentioned, I'm the president of the local chapter of ACB, and it is kind of chaotic because there's only one Braille menu, and oftentimes the waiter, the waitress does not know how to handle this. So, really training that person in how to ask questions, to try to direct and get people kind of headed in the direction that they, what kind of thing do you want today, et cetera, as Jennifer suggested earlier. That's really important. And so knowing how to communicate when you don't have a Braille menu or you don't have enough Braille menus. And accessible bathrooms means Braille on the doors. Some way to know which bathroom is which. And so those are a few things. And besides the food is, nice if the food is good. That'll get me that. So.
I will do a little one pitch on CCA at bloomington.in.gov, and all you need to do is request. We would like to have the guidelines for large print menus, and I will be happy to send that to anybody who needs those things too. So they're also attached here, but that's plain to the camera.
Accessible websites. Accessible websites. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, that's important too.
Yep.
So at this point, kind of open it up. Questions for our panelists. If not, they'll probably have more to say on other areas.
I would like to just talk a little, sorry. But one thing that really got to us, or got to me, I was the angry one most of the time. Chuck just took things lightly. But we go out to eat to a restaurant, and there was somebody, if there were several waiting to go in, they'd see him sitting in a wheelchair, and I was pushing him. And they just let the door slam on us. Well, I hurried up and just pushed right against their heels as hard as I could. They were so startled, and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And then another time, it was here. We used to sit down at the table. And when the waiter came, he would say, I'd give my order, and he would say, "Well, will you ask him what he wants?" And I said, "He's in a wheelchair, not in a coma." And then we'd go up to pay, and he'd give them the money, and they'd always give it back to me. So, and I'm so grateful we don't find that to be true anymore. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious, what is an accessible website?
Well, and it's not easy to answer, but you want to make sure that your website, for example, if your website has images on it, which most websites are full of images, they have to be visually appealing to those that see. Those images need to be named. They have to have a text assigned to those images. And so in order for a screen reader type software to recognize or to read it, there's a lot more to it than that. But screen readers are softwares that read to a blind person what's on the monitor, what's on the screen. That's basically what a screen reader does.
They don't read PDFs, right?
They can. Some PDFs that are accessible.
Yeah. So it has to be accessible PDF that they can read. A lot of people just throw PDFs and assume you can.
Yeah. And I don't claim to be a highly techie person, but you want to make sure that your website is readable by the average person. So.
And again, there's another example of when you hire someone to create your website. There are standards on the web for website developers. So in your contract with them, you should specify the website must meet ADA accessibility standards.
Well, at a minimum, it should have the reader view available. Sometimes you'll notice up in the address bar and say, well, here's a lovely page full of images, and better websites will have the reader view programmed into it, or website developers certainly know how to do this.
It's
But you
always,
need, as Vicki says, to set this as a requirement for the people you hire to do your websites.
it's always good to connect with your community, and you in this community are very lucky to have the Community Council on Accessibility, which has at its disposal too, people with different disabilities. For example, they would know, if you, for example, wanted someone who was vision impaired or blind to review or to look at your website, the CCA could contact one of us on the committee that is blind, that does use these types of softwares, these types of technology, and could take a look at the website and let you know whether or not the menus are clearly, readable.
Yeah, and I just wanted to echo, so the Great Lakes ADA Center, they're on their website, adagreatlakes.org. They have resources available there to give more of the technical guidance to your web developer. They also, whether or not you use somebody from CCA, you can also contract through them and they will review your website as well. So there's a lot of resources to help identify that.
And you have a local chapter of the American Council of the Blind too, which is largely people who are blind in the chapter. And I will tell you that when we go to a restaurant, a lot of us will look at the menus, we'll look at the website before we go. So, and a lot of times that will determine if we go.
Yeah, and I think the issue of the menu on the website and so many of them being put on as either images or PDFs that are not accessible, that's a huge issue. You know, if somebody like me, I want to read the menu too, because it takes me so long to order. You know, I want to have something to look forward to for the whole day. So that would probably be one of the very first things that I would recommend a restaurant owner look at is the accessibility of the menu itself. I could give you a dozen restaurants that have menus on there that have bells and whistles and all the scrolling, and the content itself is not accessible for people. So that would be a critical area for you to look at.
I'm also curious about the cost of Braille menus and where do you look to have those done?
We, tricky question, because the city is not allowed to recommend a specific one. So we have it inside that guidelines, I believe, what search things you should use in Google, and lo and behold, will pop it up. But maybe somebody else who hasn't,
I can
actually give a name.
As a private citizen. One of the biggest resources you have in the state is a place in Indianapolis called Bosma Industries, and they do Braille menus. And then you can also, it is.
BOSMA?
Yes. And you can also go to the web and just write Braille menus or large print menus, and people will pop up. We once had a project with the CCA where we found a place in Illinois, and what they did a beautiful job. They took a restaurant's menu, and it ends up being pretty thick, and it bound it for the restaurant person and printed a large print menu, and it cost $41. So it was very, very reasonable. So there are those resources. And then if you look at this sheet here for large print, because a lot of restaurants have changing menus, this shows you how you can do this in Word on your own computer. There's just some very easy things like size and the kind of a font and how you place things. But this goes into a lot of detail, but it's really very easy, so you can do your own large print. And I think someone mentioned it here, it's make sure your staff knows where those resources are, so when somebody comes in who needs them, they'll say, oh yeah, I'll go get one.
They're often fishing around for it because nobody's ever asked for it, I guess. But the other thing with Bosma Enterprises, they have a lot of blind people that work at Bosma, so they have very good proofreaders. These are proofreaders that actually read Braille. These are not proofreaders that are proofing with their eyes. So that's a good resource.
I'd like to throw in, as a disabled person who also is very concerned about nutrition in terms of trying to manage my disabilities, so that the availability of a nutrition menu that tells me which of the salty dishes are least poisonous, those sorts of things. The gluten-free for those who have, allergic disabilities, those kinds of things.
It's been sort of alluded to all the way through, but, as you're thinking of a change, or if, you know somebody who's renovating a restaurant, or you are, or building a restaurant, a really helpful resource is to, and you can call TCA to get these kind of people, is to ask for a team of people with disabilities to come and talk with you about the plans before you build or before you open. And, definitely include a wheelchair user. But you also might want to include someone who's blind or someone with another kind of disability, because the tricky thing in this world is that there are different needs for different kinds of disabilities. And so if you brought in a team, and the best example I can give is actually when Brian Reeves was head of the IU Auditorium. As he was remodeling that auditorium, he brought in a group of people with disability and asked them to take a look at what was needed. And that place, the way he renovated it was done very, very well. And that's just what I think Jennifer was talking about too, is pre-planning. Use, people with disabilities aren't your professional experts, because you'll, review plans and things, you'll want to get a professional. But people with disabilities they know all the pitfalls, and they can spot things that you or I maybe never would have thought of, but it will be grossly helpful to you as you move forward. It's just a good idea to use the people who are your potential customers.
And I know this has been said, but it sounds like a lot. We're going to have to include all these different disabilities, but a lot of these things are very simple kind of things that you can incorporate into your plan of business, and it's not really going to be that difficult. And also, the other thing I wanted to say, thinking back to the independent contractor thing, and what Jennifer emphasized is so critical, because I cannot tell you how many, and everybody in this room, I'm sure, can attest to this. The building is complete, and now you've got to retro. You got to go backwards because it wasn't done right.
Can I ask Susan to share something about Nick's, because she's had to do lots of retro kind of stuff, right? And you've made great attempts to try to be welcoming to other audiences, and I thought maybe you want to share something with this group as well.
Well, they're giving me a lot more insight. I thought I learned a lot when I had an arbitration with David and a mediator, because I am like Vicki, I don't see all the pitfalls because I'm not disabled. So you guys are giving me a lot of information. I'm just taking your information here going forward with our third building that we're beginning to renovate. We're in two old buildings from the early 1900s, and the space constraints are very narrow. The existing bathrooms are from the 20s and are block, and just can't really do much with them. As a business owner, you weigh out all your costs and try and figure out which ones you should go forward with first and on down the line. I'm sorry to say, Nick's has not looked at disabled viewpoint very well, and being the third ownership, my husband and I are trying to put that on the priority, at least the top of the priority for this third building that we're taking over. And we will get a team of experts in to make sure that the design is correct. And we remodeled the existing bathroom. We're not even open, but it already is ADA compliant. The second building second bathroom will be as well. But when you're dealing with 2 stories, that's a real challenge for handicap. We have carried people up the stairs who are comfortable with our security guys going upstairs. And we have renovated the upstairs bathrooms in one section. So I wouldn't say they're ADA compliant, but they are spacious and they're more accessible than the downstairs. Just from electrical to plumbing that have been in place for 100 years, ripping things out. And we have ripped things out, but it's just the very front of the building. or, you know, the entryway. So, sorry to say, you have accessibility in the back, and there's nothing wrong with going into the back of the building, because all of us employees go in the back. We're very proud to go into the back, and we're very proud to help people out the back and into our renovated ADA bathroom. And we're at right now, the second phase of the third building probably won't be open to the public until January 2017. It's not very far away.
But a good example of having a priority transition plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kudos.
We're working
Yes.
on our patience. I know whatever Jackie said, you can't do it overnight, but
Any other questions?
Well, you mentioned Brian Reeves. I was one of the people that went over there when they were getting ready to do the auditorium, so
Yeah.
I worked with him.
Yeah, good. Yeah. That's really good work. Well, there's one other bit of information that we'd like to share with you. It has little bits. I think some of you who were here, the restaurant owners here, already have the decal. I know Malibu does, and I think both of Buccetto's did. But what we've done, thanks to one of our committee members saying, can we take a look at updating the decal, is we've redesigned the decal. And it's a brighter color, it's a little bit bigger, it's square, and most importantly, it has the new universal design figure. You know, the old-fashioned universal design figure is a, you know, a circle that's a wheelchair, right? This one has it tilted and moving forward to show people with disabilities as active participants of their community. And we're going to unveil that new decal on July 25th, which is Bloomington's celebration of the 26th anniversary of the ADA, which is really on July 26th, but is that right? Yeah, July 26th. But we can't make it on that day, so we're going to celebrate on the 25th.
And that's okay, because last year we had the 25th on the 26th.
Yeah, we like doing things like that. And on that day, we're hoping to have 5 or 6 more restaurants and businesses receive the decal, and they're going to be invited to come to the celebration at City Hall, and someone from the mayor's office will be there. The mayor would have been there, but that happened to be his vacation week. And be presented, and we'll try to get those pictures in the paper and in the newspaper, and we'll advertise it on our website that here are some more people with the decals. But the fun part is that the CCA members are each going to get 4 or 5 new decals, and someone's going to come to Malibu and give you the new one. And so we're going to spread out all over, especially the downtown, but all over town that day and that week, and give the previous owners a brand new decal, and then we'll have 5 or 6
Unless
new
they
they're
want to
brand-
actually come to City Hall.
That's
We'll
right.
have a great big backdrop with all the names of all the restaurants who have received them, and we're hoping that those people will come, and they'll shake the hand of the city official, get the decal for the new one, and we'll take pictures that you can put on your Facebook and we can put on ours. So.
Which is great advertising.
So that's what's coming up. And I think if there are no more questions, we appreciate you all coming. And again, know that if you have a question or you just need some advice or some ideas of who to contact or what to do, call the CCA. I think on the brochure there's Michael's email and his telephone number. He's the main contact person. And then it comes back to the committee a lot of times. If you want staff training, you know, to talk about some of these sensitivity issues and good customer service issues when you have a person with a disability, we'd be very happy to arrange for a training session for staff if that would help you too. NOAS is a resource. If you haven't been, I think everybody who is here has been assessed, but if you have friends in the business who would like to be assessed, just again, call Michael and we'll send a person or a team of people over and run through. I think we told you, that in your packet, this is the assessment that we use, but you can use it as a self-assessment. And then there's the parking instructions that if you hire someone to stripe your parking lot, give them that paper and say, this is what it has to be. It has to be correct according to this. And then there's the information about the large print menus.
I don't think there's anyone here with a hotel, right? Restaurant and a hotel?
No.
Okay, okay, yeah, all right. I was just gonna mention that about, she referenced it earlier about how important it is to have Braille room numbers and accessible elevators.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we'd like to really thank our panelists who did
Yeah.
a great job.
Great.
And thanks to all of you for coming out and joining us today. We hope it was helpful.